What up, Wizards? It's Dev. Mtg. We like it at Magic cards, and last time we met on the couch of Legend, we were here to celebrate the departure from Standard of some of the format's biggest scourges. But here, today, we're going to do the exact opposite. Today, we're here to mourn the loss from Standard of some of the format's most fun to play, most well-rounded, well-designed cards. But I know what you're thinking if you're a fan of the channel. Hey, Dev. Looking good these days. Thank you very much. I really appreciate compliments. But what I was thinking is that this video could sound a little similar to a video we did a couple of weeks ago about the top 10 cards that could have been contenders. But in that video, I was specifically talking about cards that not only saw like no tournament play, but very, very little arena play too. Now, the cards we're going to talk about today are cards that see a good bit of play in the arena for the last like 2 years they've been in Standard, but I nonetheless still am going to miss their presence here in this environment. So now that you know the difference between these two videos, I felt like that was important. Let's go ahead and get to it. Let's talk about the top 10 rotating cards I'm actually going to miss.
And I'm your favorite Magic Channel's favorite Magic Channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck techs. I come correct like a porn star, slicing up all these other suckers with my sword mark.
And we're back. I don't know where I would go. I think some of you have an irrational fear or maybe a hope that I'll just leave the intro rap music on like an 8-hour loop, but I'm not going to do that to you. And if I do, I'm pretty sure the runtime's going to give me away. But I am back, and we're going to go ahead and get to the content because I wasted so much time on that little bit there. But let's talk about the honorable mention first, right after you like and subscribe. Again, no bits, just like and subscribe. But let's get to the honorable mention here to kick off the list. Now, this one might surprise you a little bit, but my honorable mention is Vanishing Verse. Why, Dev? This is actually on the list of cards you couldn't wait to rotate. In the last video, well, you see, there's a duality that exists in all of us that's very important to what makes us who we are. You see, on the one hand, don't like getting my stuff blown up, especially my 5-6 mana thing I was super happy about crafting or buying and got it in the mail or whatever, and then like it just gets Vanishing Verse for 2 mana at instant speed before I even get to really use it. That sucks. But on the other hand, Orzhov Mage here, and we're approaching 100 times that I've said that here on the channel, so if you didn't know that about me by now, welcome to the channel. It's your first SBMTG video. And this is just a good piece of Orzhov removal here, kid. Just classic, point and click, and that thing's gone forever. And that feels really good to blow up other people's 5 and 6 mana stuff that's otherwise going to ruin your day. So again, in some ways, really happy this card's leaving the format because my stuff is going to be safe. I just really like my stuff. I want to keep it, I want to play with my stuff. But on the other hand, the exit of Vanishing Verse is going to leave an alliterative 2-mana removal-sized hole in my heart. Let's get to the actual list, talk about some fun cards. These are all cards that could have almost been on the could have been contenders list, but I feel like saw just barely, or in some cases, way too much play in Arena. Even if they didn't show up too many tournaments, they saw way too much play on Arena to really be considered for that list. So they're kind of perfect for this list, but they also can't be too high on this list. But all that said, number 10 is Dina, one of the cards that I'm easily going to miss the most. All right, so hear me out, because this is going to sound really weird, I think, but in this environment, I've always viewed Dina as kind of a blood artist. Again, sounds weird. It doesn't have that familiar Aristocrats feeling of like sacking all your dudes and dealing a buttload of damage of Blood Artist, or like getting in for combat damage. If your dudes get blocked and die, it's whatever, you're still dealing damage with Blood Artist. It's none of that is happening, but it still feels parallel to the Aristocrats experience to like play a creature that makes a creature, right? And then your Prosperous Innkeepers and your Lunarch Veterans start going off, and that, that pings your Dina, and she just does damage like 3 or 4 at a time. You're like bolting your opponent with life gain. That just always feels really, really good. Anybody who's looked at the channel in the last couple of years, or the Twitch streams for that matter, knows that Dina is one of my favorite cards in the entire format. And I felt like she saw just barely too much experimentation, if not straight up play, on Arena to like really see a spot on the last list that I did like this one. But this is definitely a card that could be in Standard until the end of time, and I'm pretty sure I would never get sick of it. So let's pour one out for Dina here. That's milk. That's, oh God, why am I doing that? That's why am I doing that? I didn't put like a thing down, like a tarp or something to catch this, because I didn't plan on doing this for the video. I don't know what I'm going to do for videos when I sit down on the couch. I just kind of wing it. So now I poured milk on the rug. It had to be milk too. It's going to stink. It's going to stink. I have to clean that now as soon as the video's over. Why did I do that? But still, I guess if I had to do something that stupid, I'm glad that I did it for Dina. Gonna miss you, girl. But another card that I really like, again, especially if you've seen the Twitch streams in the last couple of years, this isn't a secret of any kind. But again, I feel like it saw too much experimentation to really make the last list that we did. But number 9 is Forsaken Monument. I can't say enough positive things about this card, even though it has not necessarily been good to me or many of the other players who have tried it. But there's so many cool things that you could do with it. Whether it's the like sweeper heavy Forsaken Monument deck with like Doomscar and Farewell or Depopular or whatever. It's got a million sweepers in it. And Cosmos Elixir, another card I'm going to miss when it rotates, But you've just got sweepers and Cosmos Elixir and Forsaken Monument. And maybe you win off of Crawling Barrens or something like that. I'm not going to miss Crawling Barrens, I have to say. But either way, this is always a super fun deck, whether you're doing the sweepers version of it or you're just going oops all colorless and trying to make that work, even though it so rarely does. When it does, it feels really good. So Forsaken Monument, especially now, if you haven't tried Forsaken Monument in a while, give it a shot. We're in an 8-set standard with a lot of actually really playable colorless cards. Some you'd be surprised how playable they are. But in any case, if you haven't tried the all colorless deck, give it a shot. I'm going to be streaming that one soon for our 2-year stream anniversary. I think we'll do Mono Colorless Monument because it's been so good to us in the past on the Twitch streams. But I know I'm not going to be the only one that misses this card. A lot of us have tried it, and a lot of us keep coming back to it, even though it's not the best card in the world. But there's a reason we keep coming back to it. There's an allure to the Forsaken Monument. When it does go off, it's one of the best feelings there is. But number 8 is another 2-mana green legend. We've already seen one of those on this list, but there's another one I'm going to miss even more than Dina, and that's Finn. And I know that that is an opinion that is shared by a good number of standard players out there. The good old Finn Fecht deck was never a real deck, I think we can all agree, but we just played it on stream the other night, and it was a lot better than I thought it would be. I think we still went like 40% with the deck, but we won like 4 or 5 games with it, which is more impressive than I thought. And you can usually get away with just playing a straightforward like green-black Finn deck or green-blue. People ask me to play that deck. People have all kinds of ideas with this card. You have to play a lot of, 1-power creatures. So I had a lot of people asking me to play Rigo in the deck. Oddly enough, I had people asking if we could play Binding the Old Gods and a bunch of just decent creatures. Play Finn when the binding goes off and just get through for a bunch of damage. Scoot Swarm tokens, whatever. I had people asking if we could play, Sereth. I couldn't remember her name for a second. If we could play Sereth and give all of our tapped creatures Death Touch or whatever. But a lot of people have a lot of ideas with this card. And it's probably going to live on in at least Arena for a good long time because people are going to be making like the Finn Fecht historic brawl decks when this card exits standard. So just because it's, buy for now doesn't mean it's goodbye forever. We may see this card a little bit more from time to time on Arena, depending on what modes we play, but being able to play it in Standard is very soon going to not be a reality anymore, and that feels really, really bad. I've already poured out milk onto my carpet. I might as well do it for the old man. I'm going to miss you, Finn. I'm going to miss you, Finn. Why do I have a mug full of milk? Why did I decide milk was what I wanted to drink while recording a video? That doesn't make any sense, especially if you know anything about voice recording or voice acting. Milk is literally the worst choice. Why did I do that? Let's get to number 7 so we can start talking about some cards that you really do see on Arena a good bit. Let's talk about Valky for this entry. I'm gonna miss Valky. I know that this opinion, unlike some others, is not shared by a vast majority of the community. However, I think that Valky is actually kind of a perfectly fair Magic card. It's just a 2-mana 2/1, and yeah, it might take a creature out of your hand, but not really. You just kill the Valky and get your guy back, right? So there's that. But Valky is either a 2-mana curve filler or a 3 or 4-mana curve filler after you play it because it can turn into the creature that you can nab, or it's a 7-mana planeswalker. And I think all of those modes are actually kind of fair. I like a card I can play on turn 2 and curve out if I get it in my opener, but also works as a decent top deck. And I think that they kind of elegantly solved that problem with this card. And you just don't really see that on a lot of cards in Standard, especially given the fact that this card solves that problem without being way too overpowered. I don't think that it is. Also, and finally, just going to miss Tibble. I like Tibble, but let's get to number 6, which is Waking the Trolls. You probably see this card more than you should. It's not really a great Magic card, but me and a lot of other people want it to be a great Magic card and have worked our butts off, fruitlessly in most cases, trying to get Waking the Trolls to work. But there's a reason for that. This is the land destruction card that I, as a person who for some reason likes land destruction. Why do I like land destruction? Am I a bad person? Am I selfish? But anyway, I like land destruction, and this not only blows up a land, but is also a win condition in your land destruction deck, which is just really important. It's just a really, really sweet card that works on in a couple of different decks in this environment, whether it's just straight up Gruul land destruction, Teamer land destruction, all the way up to the 5 mana or the 5 color Prismatic Bridge deck or the 5 color Kami War deck. We see this card in a lot of things, and there's a reason for that. It's a land destruction player's dream, even if it never quite worked out the way we wanted it to. But number 5 is a combo card that has done work in multiple formats, Commander being one of them, but even in Standard, a lot of people try to make this enchantment work on Arena too. But I would say that people, by and large, had a much more success with this one than Waking the Trolls, and that's Teleportation Circle, a card that I'm going to miss so much. I feel like Circle just never really got enough attention when Yorion was in the format last year. There's a card I don't miss. I know some of you do. I don't share that opinion, but either way, I am going to miss Teleportation Circle, which is a much more fair version of Yorion, without being fair in any way, actually. Once this card gets cooking, there's just way too many fun ways to abuse it, whether it's actually busted stuff like a Seeka's Chariot, all the way down to just cool utility like Dawnbringer Cleric. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this card. Righteous Valkyrie and an Angel or two and just gain a bunch of life every turn. There's so many things that you can do with Teleportation Circle that are either fun or busted or, in most cases, a little bit of both. But number 4 is another card that's going to be leaving Standard, but it's not going to be leaving the Commander table anytime soon. And I would actually say probably go ahead and pick up your copies of Tiamat while they're still somewhat cheap, because she ain't going to be cheap forever. A 5-color Dragons Commander is probably going to be somewhat sought after until the end of Magic the Gathering, which will probably never actually happen. So again, pick this lady up while you can, but in the meantime, really sucks she's leaving Standard. I have probably made 8 different Tiamat decks and put at least 2 of them on the channel. And one of them on the Twitch streams. 2 of them on the Twitch stream, 2 of them on the Twitch streams. So I've made a lot of Tiamat decks over the last year and a half. And this is probably actually my favorite card from AFR, all things considered. And I've been loving Tiamat since I was 5 years old. I actually didn't know that Tiamat was a Dungeons and Dragons thing. Tiamat is the next to last boss. It's the final fiend in the first Final Fantasy game. Tiamat's the Fiend of Wind, I believe. So when I saw that Tiamat was on a Magic card, I was like, awesome! Oh, what, do you play Dungeons & Dragons? No, I played Final Fantasy. So I really want to play with Tiamat. So I'm going to really miss having this in Standard. The thing about AFR in general is that a lot of those cards, it's kind of sad they're leaving Standard. I mean, it's one of the few intellectual properties that I would want Magic to work with and make sense for Magic to work with is Dungeons & Dragons. And these are cards that I think a lot of people who play Magic and D&D, and there's a pretty big crossover, cross section there, right? I think a lot of people that play both Magic and D&D have wanted this for 25 years plus, right? We finally got it. Now all those cards are rotating, and that is sad, but in my opinion, the saddest of all of those cards is Tiamat. But now we're in the top 3. Now, these are not only cards that I'm going to miss the most, personally. I have a lot of fun with them. I think they're just really well designed, something like that, yada yada, but also cards that have seen a pretty good amount of play on the arena ladder, even. I'll even throw the word ladder in there, but I think a good case in point is number 3, Blood Chief's Thirst. Now this is, to my mind, a perfect removal spell. I'm going to use that word here, right? It's 1 mana if you want to blow up a small thing. If you want to blow up a big thing, it's more mana. That's great. This is never going to blow up your 5 or 6 mana thing at 1 or 2 mana instant speed. No, it's always sorcery speed. Sometimes, though, it only costs 1 mana to blow up a Luminarch Aspirin or some other important 2-drop. But if it wants to blow up a 5 mana Planeswalker, pay more mana. Again, perfectly designed. Just chef's kiss. Perfectly designed in just about every way. And even when I'm playing with Blood Chief's Thirst, I really don't mind paying the 4 mana a lot of the time to blow up that Loth or Ren and 7 or whatever. So just a great removal spell, and In my opinion, I keep saying that, but it's my video and it's highly subjective, so I have to. But in my opinion, maybe just the most perfect removal spell in Standard in a very, very long time. Now for number 2, I considered just doing a whole mechanic for this one, but I'll pick a specific card, Professor of Symbology, in the number 2 slot. I've had a lot of fun and utility with this card over the last couple of years, but of course I'll miss the learn mechanic at large a good bit. I've said before, I've played a lot of best of 1 over the last year or two. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's mostly because I'm a content creator. If you're not a content creator, play all the best of 3. It's totally fine. But I've got to get a lot of games in with a lot of decks. And especially when I hit the streams, we want to get in, 8, 9, 10 games. And that's just really hard to do in best of 3. So I play a lot of best of 1. And these, learn cards, these lessons and whatnot, are just really, really interesting ways of getting, card advantage in your best of 1 deck, getting good top decks, stretching some playability, and I just really, really like this mechanic a lot. But Professor of Symbology is the poster child for this mechanic in my eyes. There's just so many cool things you can do with this, whether you're not even learning with it. I've played this in a bunch of white-based reanimator decks with Invoke Justice, right? Because you can just use Professor to throw a big fat guy in your yard, draw something off the top of your library, and then later reanimate the thing you discarded. That's the cool thing about Learn, is that you don't have to get something out of your board, but when you can, you go get a thing that blows up an artifact or an enchantment, right? A containment breach. You go get a thing that just blows up anything, an introduction to Annihilation or the white one. I forget the name of it right now. But in any case, there are tons of, even Mascot Exhibition. I'm going to miss a good bit, Again, it gives you this ridiculous reach to be able to top deck a Professor, go get a Mascot, and play it in the same turn some of the time. So just a really cool card, a really cool mechanic that I'm going to miss a good bit in my Standard. It also kind of sucks that all of the Professors are rotating, right? This, Professor Onyx, there's no more Professors in Standard, and that's kind of sad. These cards make me think of the Professor. There's not going to be a card like that in Standard anymore. That's kind of lame. But anyway, number 1. Oh my God, number 1. We're already there. Number 1 is a card that I obviously have a lot of personal love for. And even though it hasn't seen all of the tournament play in the world, I know that a lot of you have a lot of personal love for Nighthawk Scavenger as well. And this is a card that perpetually shows up on SBMTG lists. I don't know if you've been keeping score here, but I put this card on multiple lists in the past. When me and Power Dragon did a list about the top 10 post-rotation sleepers around this time last year, this was very high up on our lists. So this card is no stranger to an SBMTG list, and this is probably the last time I'm ever going to be able to put it on a list. Amazingly, I've said that it was going to be an important card in Standard multiple times, and it just never really panned out. But that didn't keep it from seeing loads of arena play. I still play against this thing 4 times a week on the arena client, which for a card like it is kind of a lot. Whether it's people throwing it into rogues when it didn't really belong in rogues, or people throwing it into vampires when it doesn't really go in vampires, everyone really wants this card to work, and it's had multiple opportunities. Whether it's in the green-black mid-range decks, the mono-black mid-range decks, a lot of people have tried Scavenger, and that's because a lot of people have love for Scavenger, because, it reminds us of Vampire Nighthawk. That used to be a really good card. Why isn't this a great card? It's in the Finn decks. It's just in tons and tons of decks in Standard without actually ever really showing up in tournaments. But to those of us who play on the equivalent of a kitchen table in Arena, this is just one of our favorite cards, and I'm going to miss having a presence like this in Standard so much. It's hard to quantify how much I'm going to miss being able to slip Nighthawk Scavenger into a deck when I really want it there. But that's all for my list. Let me finally actually drink some of this milk, since I just had to have it. I looked in the fridge and milk. Oh, I should probably have some milk. Oh, it's delicious. Why do I even like milk? It's not actually very good. Actually, it's kind of going bad. Didn't even know that when I poured it. All this. That means it's going to stink the carpet up faster, isn't it? It's also left a milk ring on the table. But enough about milk. That's my list. That's all I've got for this one. And to be honest, usually this is the part where I'm this could have been a top 20. Amazingly, and I think this says something about Standard. These were the 11 cards I could come up with. I can't come up with 12. I know some of you have your pet cards that you'll probably say down there in the comments section that are leaving standard. Even if it's a card that sees all the play in the world, but you're still going to miss it, let me know down there in the comments section. Aside from that, just YouTube stuff, like, subscribe. If I have to pimp the Twitch streams one more time, I guess I will. I've said Twitch enough in this video, probably. I feel like the more you say Twitch, the more YouTube buries you in the algorithm. That's probably how it works. But either way, twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. It is free to follow over there. And if your household has an Amazon Prime subscription, you get 1 free Twitch subscription a month to your streamer of your choice. I would be really honored if that was me. But aside from that, you can check me out on Patreon, where you can vote on content for just $1 a month, and it really helps me out. But I guess that's all of the business I have on the docket for today. So, again, just let me know how you felt about it in the comments section, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.